Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Autastic, your comedian's guide to autism. We have a special episode this week. I am one of your hosts. My name is Kirk, and I am interviewing our reporter, the roving Jill Escher. Jill, how are you?
Kirk, long time no see, man. Glad to be back.
Been a long time. Been a long time. Now, I was trying to think, it's how long ago did I meet you? This podcast has been going on, I want to say 6 years, 7 years. I think I met you towards the beginning. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's probably been 6 or 7 years. Yeah. I remember meeting you in Palo Alto, California when you came out to do a show.
Yeah, I think I was living in Beverly Hills at the time. I was trying to get my daughter into Beverly High, which is
Mhm.
in hindsight was not the best move, and if I remember right. And yeah, wow, time just flies by.
Mhm.
Now, for those of you who don't aren't longtime listeners, Jill is our roving reporter and has interviewed a lot of people. I believe you were responsible for our Temple Grandin interview. You were responsible for a lot of interviews at different autism events, different
Yes.
scientists. Kathy Lord, I believe you spoke to.
Yes. It's
A lot
been a
lot of
while though.
dignitaries of autism.
Yeah, you haven't sent me many marching orders in recent years, but to be honest, I now have my own podcast, which is an interview format podcast. So it's not really
Mhm.
like Autastic. It's a podcast called Autism Confidential. It's the podcast of the National Council on Severe Autism, and we focus on questions, issues around severe and profound autism primarily. And it's usually an interview format. So I haven't disappeared totally from the podcast sphere, but have not been doing my roving reporter work. I get an F.
Well, I feel like I should get credit for getting you started. I remember sending you, I'm like, you could do this. Here's the equipment you need. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
That was
like, what?
awesome. Well, just like give us an example of give the people an example of what you would cover, like issues wise on your podcast. Just give them a taste of a little what's it called? A little teaser for your podcast.
Yeah.
Like what
So,
issues talking about housing? Are you talking about bowel issues or
oh my
maybe
gosh, we have done both of those. We did have the poop
okay.
episode. So
Okay.
we are not fearful of where we tread. National Council on Severe Autism is a nonprofit that I co-founded with a bunch of other autism advocates that focuses again on the end of the spectrum that involves intellectual disability and usually substantial functional deficits and often some challenging behaviors as well. So as we know, autism
My
is
son.
your son would definitely fall within our purview. Most definitely. And so would both of my kids. So I have a son who's 24, who I think is the same age as JJ.
Yeah.
And
Same
then
build too, told me.
Yeah, same build. He's a hunka burning love, my son. And then
Big man.
My daughter, who's 17, who's actually right here behind me, but she's fuzzed out. You can't see her. She's 17, and both of them are nonverbal with autism and intellectual disability, but also extremely cute and adorable and wonderful, as are really all of our kids. And so we really set to do advocacy for that portion of the spectrum that we felt was being very much overlooked in mainstream autism advocacy, which had drifted very much toward a neurodiversity paradigm. So if you went to like the mainstream autism advocacy organizations, they would be very much focused on people who were verbal, people without an intellectual disability, people who you might consider neurodiverse and not necessarily disabled, people who needed things like inclusion in college or inclusion in jobs, things that were completely out of reach for our children.
Right.
And we were very much feeling like, well, our kids' needs are being almost entirely overlooked. And so we tried to fill that void with this new organization, NCSA, and you can find it at ncsautism.org. And we continue to do that. We started in 2019. It's now 2023, so it's been 4 years. So we're still kind of marching down that road and trying to work on some kind of pressing policy issues. You know, this portion of the spectrum, as you well know through your own experience, has an incredibly hard time finding adult services, adult housing, you know, long-term care, adult medical services, even adult dental services, everything across the board. It seems to be incredibly hard in all 50 states. And we really need to do much more to address that. It's a very urgent and growing issue. So we, as part of what we do in our advocacy, we did start a podcast called Autism Confidential, and we cover, we've covered all kinds of topics. We've covered, you know, fecal matters, as you alluded to earlier. We've covered housing related issues, Medicaid related issues. God, what haven't we covered? You know, learning to swim, you know, dental care, oh my gosh, there's so many, you know, creating, you know, day programs,
I'm guessing
and employment,
work too,
everything.
like
Yeah.
finding aids and finding,
Yeah.
right?
Anything, Medicaid, you know, finding adult services. We've looked at, you know, just advocacy issues around, for example, the diagnostic scheme of autism and how absurd it's become, that like our most recent episode was about the word autism. You know, for example, the singer Sia, on a podcast, she said that she had been diagnosed as being on the spectrum. And so I had an episode about how absurd that is, you know, that somebody like Sia could have the same diagnosis as my nonverbal daughter. Like, it makes absolutely no sense
we've talked about
whatsoever.
that too. That's
Yeah.
not helpful because
Not helpful,
yeah.
like at all, and very harmful, actually. And so we had a couple of experts talking about what in the world does autism even mean anymore. So we cover a lot of ground, and again, it's not like Autastic. We're very much an interview oriented podcast. And I think increasingly we're going into kind of policy oriented matters, which are not that popular with listeners. Listeners seem to like things that are a little bit more.
Well, let me just jump in here real quick. What do you think the solution is to this? Like, not podcast wise, government wise. Like, one of my pet peeves is when we go, I don't know, there's no funding for disabled adults, or there's funding, but they've set up roadblocks to weed out people, to reduce, you know, if you have 100 people and you can discourage half of them, now you're only getting housing for 50 people. You know, I'm using small numbers, but then when there's a war in Ukraine, there's plenty of money to go send missiles. So there's clearly is money. And I'm not saying the war in the Ukraine effort's not good. I support the Ukrainian effort, but I do think the funding for our disabled people is very important and often overlooked. And poor and disabled people in this country have there's a lot of issues going on. There's a lot. So what are you hoping to do? Do you try to advocate politically? Do you try to grassroots campaign to put something on a ballot, or?
Yeah, well, you know, this is a big topic because we are facing what I consider to be just a national catastrophe when it comes to adult autism. I don't beat around the bush. I don't try to prettify it. You know, we have ever increasing numbers of young adults aging out of the school system and falling off the cliff, right, is the term for what happens when they age out of school and into the adult system, which is massively underfunded. And falling off the cliff is a completely appropriate metaphor. I mean, the school system, at least there is a nationwide mandate for education up through, you know, age 21. And then after that, you age into the Medicaid funded adult system, which is funded at a fraction of the childhood system. And the irony is, the really sad, terrible irony is that, of course, the needs are much greater in adulthood than in childhood, because
it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away, and the parents get older.
It's going to be a lot longer.
It's a lot longer. You know, the parents are less able to care for their adult children. Then they inevitably age, you know, become infirm and die, right? And so it's a much bigger
Well, if things
problem.
go according to the plan, you don't outlive your kids. I mean, you hope your kids outlive you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes, and they do, and they do. I mean,
Yes.
there are, classically in the world of developmental disabilities, that wasn't true. The kids did not necessarily outlive their parents. When you look at things like Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, their lives were quite a bit shorter. But my
Yeah.
kids haven't, are projected to have a normal age, lifespan. And I will definitely predecease them. You will definitely predecease JJ. I'd put money on
I
that.
hope so. I've worked hard. I'm ready. I'm done. I've made my
Yeah,
peace
you're
with
done.
God. Joking. I'm joking. A
You
little
still have
dark.
a
Just a
baby face
joke.
though, Kirk. No
Just a
matter what you
joke. I
do,
do have
you
a fat
still
little
look 25.
face. I still have a fat little baby face of a broken
Yep.
man on the inside.
Um, yeah. So I mean, we
No,
work on
I
these.
get that.
Yeah. I mean, we work on these very um, terribly monumental issues that are facing our community. We lack everything. We lack day programs, we lack employment programs, we lack access to crisis care, and even basic medical care, psychiatric care. We lack, of course, housing options. We lack a guardianship system that is really robust and ensures that our kids are well supervised, after we're gone. It's very bad on every level, and at the national level and at the state level. And you're like, well, what's the answer?
So
Well,
back to my question. So what's the answer?
what's the answer? Well, it's sort of multifold. I mean, first we need to raise, and people say, well, autism awareness. I'm like, oh, we've barely scratched the surface of autism awareness. We've definitely made people aware of kind of cute little kids, that have autism, but there is barely
Well, yes and no.
awareness
I told a
about
story last night at a show. I'm on a ship and I had a theater show, and I told a story about when I take JJ out, if one of us has to go to the bathroom, we both have to go in the stall. And I told a not cute story about barely making it in the stall. So, and then him trying to leave and me still going to the bathroom, and then, come back here, I'm not finished. And he's like, no, I don't want to. It looks like I'm dragging this man in the bathroom to have a relationship with. It was those 800 people in that theater are very aware.
Oh, I've
That's a true story,
had
though. Yeah.
moments like that
I had
with
a
my
bad,
son. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
I had a bad coffee at IKEA and I had to go. It's like, you get to a certain age, you don't decide when you go to the bathroom. I gotta go right now. We're going to the bathroom. So anyway,
Yep, honey.
but
Yep.
yeah, you've been there. I'm sure you had to do something similar. Yeah.
Oh yes, I have a story of a woman wanting to call the police on me when I brought Johnny to the bathroom. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, well, I dragged this man in there, and for long-time listeners, my wife was mixed, and so she's much darker than me. She had the Indian kind of can I say body hair? Can you say that? Well, anyway, JJ's got a full matted chest hair, a mustache, so it doesn't look like I'm his dad. It looks like I'm dragging this Turkish guy into the bathroom with me, and so yeah, it's like. And he did not want to go, which I don't blame him. Who wants to watch a grown man take a poop? But bro, you gotta come in. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So back to the
Well, those
theme.
people are aware.
Yeah.
But I do
So
think those stories,
awareness.
all joking aside, I do think those stories are important because statistically, I did 2 shows last night. 1,600 people are going to be aware if that happens to them, and they see a man drag another man in the bathroom, and it looks like they might, oh, maybe that one's disabled. Seriously, it's like you got to tell these stories. I do think it's important.
Yeah, and a part of what NCSA is about telling these stories. And if you go on our website, go on our blog, go on our webinars, go on our YouTube channel, we do not shy away from telling, the truth about, severe forms of autism. And, I think we're often vilified by the neurodiversity advocates. Some of them, of course, the Twitter mob will go on and say anything, it doesn't matter if it's grounded in truth or not. And they'll, criticize us for telling these stories. Yeah. Yeah. And we aren't salacious. I mean, we just try to be fair and honest.
No, I'm thinking the things they say sometimes. I feel like they say
the things they say, that are click worthy.
Views.
Exactly. It's like, clickbait. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not,
Instead of saying, I don't know if I agree with this lady's point of view, it's better to say, this lady's a monster and she's destroying this autistic kid.
Right, Sophie? Sophie's right behind me. Sophie, my monster. Yeah, she's like, meh. She's like, man, I just want to go to the beach. We're in Hawaii and she just wants out of here, man.
nice.
She just wants
Who
to
doesn't?
go swimming. So anyway, yeah, people definitely can check us out at NCSA. You know, we don't have a magic wand, but we definitely believe that, you know, this voice has been absolutely sidelined and marginalized in the autism community, and we want to make it much more of a predominant, preeminent, and loud voice. Our kids who cannot speak for themselves absolutely 100% deserve a voice and to be recognized, and it's our moral duty to do that for
Yeah,
them, to make sure
that's one
their
of my
needs
pet
are
peeves. And
addressed.
they go, "You're speaking for autistic people. They can speak for themselves." I'm like, well, in
Yeah,
this
I
sense, you're
wish.
not. So
Sophie, come on this podcast
yeah.
right now. Yeah, I wish. I mean, you know, listen, we live in the world of reality. We don't live in the world of, you know, ideology or fantasy. We just we see things the way they really are. And if that's hurtful to some people, we're very sorry. But
What do
we do
you?
not want to
Let's
shy
get some
away from the
action
truth.
items. Let's get some action items to people. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? How does that work? Should they be messaging their local senator, or what do you advocate for people to do?
Okay, so we actually have something called the National Grassroots Network, or the NGN. And that is a group, we have, I don't know, about 700 people signed up already for it. It's very easy to do from our website, ncsautism.org. Just click on National Network. It takes 1 minute to sign up. And once you're in our database, we have a way to connect with you, you know, when we need some action in your state. So let's say, I don't know, let's say, for example, there's a bill in the state of New Jersey around guardianship. Well, we might want to activate our base in New Jersey. Bless you. Achoo, allergies on board. And
Excuse
bless you
me.
again.
Sorry,
And
I'm allergic to the truth. Continue.
and so, yeah, if you're part of the NGN, we can reach out to you and say, hey, you know, this is something you might want to contact your senator about, or whatever it might be. And then if you're on our Facebook group, or if you sign up for our newsletter, obviously you can see action items, you know, there as well. Some things are very
I'm signed up for
state-based.
it.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, it's very easy. Just sign up for a newsletter. If you go to our homepage, the first thing you see is newsletter sign up, and all it asks for is your name and your email address. Boom. And you'll be on our newsletter. And you'll
I'm
be,
special. I don't think I even signed up. I just get it.
you just get it. Ooh, maybe I did that.
Yeah, I think I started getting it one day, and I'm like, this. It's just, oh, this is Jill. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep getting it. I love it. So, how is Kevin? Talk to us a little bit about. And if I pull the thing away from my head and sneeze again, I apologize. But talk to us again about the housing struggles when you went to. People ask me sometimes about JJ, what housing is like here, how difficult it'd be to get what he gets in Sweden, which I even have complaints about what he gets in Sweden, in the sense that we're still trying to find him a job, but the housing's been great. And talk to us a little bit about that, about housing in California, which is a very liberal state for your son.
Right. Well, the housing
Whatever you're
situation,
willing to, don't.
yeah, no, I mean, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. I mean, let's be honest here. It's a 100% clear disaster. There are very, very few success stories when it comes to housing for adults with severe forms of autism. You know, the wait lists in some states are decades long. And even if you get what's called a waiver, so when you get what's called an HCBS waiver, which is Medicaid, mostly Medicaid funded and state funded subsidy for support services, you often can't get the services because you can't find the staff to deliver the
Still have to find
services.
staff.
Right. And, you know, the supposed vendors that
funding's
are
only
out there in
part
the
of it.
system have no space. They have no availability, right, to take on additional cases. No, it's really bad. And I hear all the time from social workers, psychiatrists, hospitals, even, you know, obviously from parents and family members and caregivers, you know, people who are in crisis and just can't find anywhere for their loved ones to go. Now, it's much easier if you have higher functioning forms of autism. There's more support services available because more agencies and vendors are willing to take on those cases. They're willing to take on those cases because they're much easier. It doesn't
Well,
take
they
as
don't
much
often
staff.
need the ratio of staff to
Yeah.
isn't what, strong, dominant, necessary. Yeah. It's almost 1-to-1 with the very severe.
Yeah, it's 1-to-1, right? With most of
Yeah.
our kids, and with some of our kids, it's 2-to-1 staff ratio or 3-to-1.
Yeah.
I know of some cases up there, that cost, $1
Yeah.
million a year. And
Wow.
it's very, very challenging. And so you have the brick and mortar issue, right? Which is, buying a place, accessing, an apartment or a group home. And then you have the services
The
issue,
physical housing.
and they're often
Yeah.
funded separately. So not only you need two pieces, right? Not just one piece. You need two pieces in place, right?
You need two minor miracles.
Two minor miracles. And I would say you actually need three, because you need the supervisor. Sophie, say hi. She's that blurry thing in the background.
Oh, I said pink shirt. Yeah.
Pink shirt. You need three, because you need the supervisory element to it, which would be, the guardian, the conservator, the person
Right.
who's actually making everything happen and ensuring the
Right.
quality of care. Right. So, there's really three legs to this stool, and getting all three of them to work is, as you said, a minor miracle, right, in our system. And our
I'm
system
not exaggerating. I'm not
No.
imagining. I'm not exaggerating.
No.
Yeah, it is a minor miracle. It's
Yeah,
or a miracle.
and
Yeah.
this is why JJ is stuck in Sweden, because, finding something.
And we talk about this all the time, where people go, "Oh, don't you make a good living?" I'm like, a good living is like, yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, $100,000 is not his. Yeah. Anyway, I do fine, but as you know, to fund something like that is
It's so it's
it would
excruciatingly expensive.
it'd be, even if I made $250,000, if I make a quarter, then I'm going to clear about 180. And I don't know if yeah. Anyway, we don't have to talk numbers on here, but yeah, it's a really tough one. And then also,
Well, anyone can
makes me
do the math,
nervous.
Kirk. Okay, let me explain. Like
Yes.
my son,
Yeah, you
who
said.
again is like kind of like JJ level, right? He
Yeah, I would
needs,
say pretty close.
yeah, he needs one-on-one care 24/7, right? Well, okay, if you have a 40-hour work week, right, which is kind of
Yeah.
what is expected in California under various laws, 40-hour work week. Okay, that means you need 3 full-time people during the week, and you need 2 people on the weekends. So he needs 5
And that's with nobody
staff.
taking vacations and stuff.
And that's
Yeah.
with nobody taking vacations and not
Yeah,
including a
sick days and
supervisor,
yeah,
right? So you're talking
Yeah,
about a
yeah.
minimum of 5 staff
it's a
for
team of people.
one person. Okay, it
Yeah.
does not take a super genius to figure out, well, let's say each staff member is getting paid, let's say 60 grand. Let's pull that number out of a hat. All right.
That's another problem, because
Times
if you pay them
5,
absolute minimum
that's-
wage, then you're
yeah.
going to get people that don't want to do this job, that are doing this job until they can leave to work at Burger King, honestly. And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't want people that don't care at all for the disabled, because it'll be,
No, and they
they've
don't
had that
last
before
long.
and it doesn't
No.
go well. No.
It does not go well, and that we have a huge staffing crisis. So anybody who knows elementary
part of the solution is you gotta
arithmetic
pay
can
them a
figure
little
out
bit
this
more.
and that. That's
Yeah,
part
go
of
ahead. Let you
part of
finish.
the
Go ahead, go ahead.
solution. No. I mean, you're right. I mean, we definitely need to recognize these jobs for the complexity they entail. We need people to be better trained. We need people to be better supervised. We
And
need
in
people on a
Sweden,
career path.
they probably take 5 weeks a year, 5 or 6 weeks vacation a year, which honestly, if you're taking care of my son's bowel movements and stuff, I mean, you're gonna need a break.
You need a break. Oh,
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. And so what's the solution to it? I mean, clearly I'm a big proponent of maximizing medical care for this population to minimize their challenging behaviors which would therefore, maximize their ability to access services. So what's crazy is, these systems are so fragmented and so disconnected that the medical care piece is completely disconnected from the long-term care piece. Sorry, I have a meeting in a few minutes, so I will have to go.
Let's wrap this up. You got 1 minute.
I have 1 minute. But if we had a sane system, we would invest everything we possibly can in the medical and psychiatric care of this population so that their care needs would be lower, right? And they'd be more able to access care. Yeah. If they're healthier, if they have fewer challenging behaviors, if they're happier, right?
Yeah.
And like getting dental care, you think, well, we should make sure these people have all the dental care they need, because the last thing you want is these guys running around with pain, right, in their mouths that they might act out about. But no, I mean, we don't have it. We have a completely irrational system. Anyway, I can go on forever, Kirk. I don't have time, unfortunately, but
no, it's great, guys. This is a little bit different week. It was an absolute privilege to have Jill back on the podcast. Maybe it's been a year. It's been too long. You plugged your podcast, you plugged the newsletter. Yeah, 30 seconds. Anything else you want to say? And I'll plug with some dates I'm doing, and then we'll wrap up. Anything else you want to say, Jill?
Oh my gosh.
Not a trick
question. So much to say. I really think, all of us who are listening to this, we are in this for the long term. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. As your child grows older, you will become more intimately familiar with the extent and depth of this crisis, and we will be there. We are not going anywhere. And I hope you can join NCSA's advocacy efforts and our awareness efforts. Our latest awareness campaign is around the systemic discrimination against people with severe and profound autism. And I hope you look that up on our homepage, ncsautism.org, and get involved. I wish I had a magic wand, as I said, and we don't. So we're in this together. I do have a new TEDx talk, and it is posted on the TEDx website. There's a link to it from our homepage as well. And you might want to take a look at that, because that goes over some of the broad issues that we are facing.
That's it, guys. I'm going to ship off and on the next few weeks. I've got to ship out of Sweden, thankfully, and I'm going to get off and go straight to see JJ in person on land. End of August, I am at Absolute Comedy in Ottawa. I'm going to film a special. If you are in Ottawa or Toronto's like an hour and a half away, you come see me live. If not, I'm back in New York City doing shows throughout the month. Guys, have a great week. Don't be discouraged. We're all in this together. You can do it.